This is Bill Stewart, and in this video I'm going to show you how to configure the XWiki application, Java application on Windows Server using Integrated Windows Authentication. This is a nice setup that uses single sign-on to a Windows domain. It is specific to Windows because it uses Windows-only Java libraries, but it's a good use case for installing on a Windows server because the application is managed by domain accounts. Security people should like this, right? Because there's a single account, that's the domain account. There's not a separate account, separate password policy, etc. It's managed simply by logging on to the domain, and the application will grant access based on that account. So in order to do this, the first thing that we want to do is go to the XWiki application. You can see I'm pulling up the application here. I'm going to sign in using the initial owner administrator account that I created when I installed the XWiki application. So I'm going to log in with that account. And I'm going to go to the menu here and administer the wiki, since I'm now logged in as the root or owner account of the wiki application. So I'm going to go to extensions and extensions. And what we're going to do is install the LDAP Authenticator application extension into the wiki. Okay, so we're going to search for all extensions, and I'm going to search for LDAP. Oops, let's put that in here. LDAP Authenticator, and search for that extension. And you'll see here it's available for install. So I'm going to click the Install on Farm to install the extension. The first click does a check for dependencies, and the Continue button will actually go and download and install the extension. Okay, so you can see it is now marked as installed. So I'm going to go back to the wiki homepage and actually log out from, let's go back to home here, and log out of the administrator account on the wiki. Okay, go back out there. Okay, so now that we've got the LDAP Authenticator extension installed into XWiki, the next step is that we actually need to configure the service account that's running the Tomcat application server, which if I go to my services applet and double click on there, you can see the account that's logging on is domain name / in my case XWiki DB owner. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to a Windows PowerShell command line and do set spn-l and Control V to paste in that owner account. And we can see what service principal names are set up on this account. Right now it's only the Postgres account, so or the Postgres database service principal name. So I actually need to do -a and then HTTP capital letters / and the FQDN of the server that's running the application, and then the account. So it's going to add that service principal name. I'll do a couple of up arrows there to check it again. And you can see now the HTTP service principal name is now attached to that account. So we've got that. Now we need to do some work in Active Directory. I'm going to open my Active Directory users and computers. there's a couple of accounts that we're going to need, groups and things. So the first thing is under users. Here is the database owner account. We're actually going to need to create another user account for LDAP, for the LDAP Authenticator application. This account does not require any special rights in Active Directory. You can see here it's just a member of standard domain users account. It's just a account that can read Active Directory. Okay, that's all you'll need. And you'll notice under my account tab, I do, would be recommended to use password never expires, because this is basically what we might refer to as a service account that has read-only access to Active Directory. Okay, so that's the first account. I've also created a sample admin account that we will demo the access to the XWiki application. We also need to set up a couple of groups in Active Directory. I'm going to go to the groups container here. The first one is a domain group that provides access to the application itself. When the Tomcat server gets a user that's a member of this specific group, it will actually allow the connection to the web server. If the user is not a member of this group, the connection will not be allowed. So you can manage access to the application simply by changing the membership of this group. And if you look in here in the Members tab, I've granted everybody in the domain access to the application. The other group, as you can see here, is the XWiki admins group. This group will be granted administrative access to the XWiki application. So obviously it needs to be a member of the users group or they can't authenticate to the web server. So we need to add the admins group to the users group. But this shows how you can manage the access, administrative access to the application simply by changing the members of the domain group. Right? And I've created a sample XWiki admin account and made it a member of the admins group, of the XWiki admins group. Okay, so those are set up. One last thing that you may need to do, depending on your browser, and I'm using the Edge as Chromium version of Microsoft Edge as an example, you may need to configure so that the single sign-on will work correctly using the browser. So I've created a GPO that has the Edge settings in it. I'm going to go to the Settings tab here, and it depends on again what your browser setting is, but HTTP authentication, and you can see I've allowed servers that are allowed to do the Windows Integrated Authentication to any server that's in with that star.fabricam.local, that FQDN, my server in this example will be xwiki.fabricam.local. That will match that pattern so the single sign-on will work. Okay, so we've got the prerequisites all set up. So now we need to download some support files from the westmesatech.com page. I'm going to go ahead and go to that page and show you the XWiki page there has some downloads for us. The first one is the Notepad 2 editor. If you don't already have that installed, I have a desktop shortcut to that tool so that I can modify the XWiki configuration files that use Unix line terminators. Okay. We also need the Tomcat 9 lib files, which is this file here, Tomcat for Tomcat version 9. And we also need the configuration file fragments that I've also downloaded. I've downloaded these. The Notepad's already Notepad 2 is already installed, but the downloads are here, the config file fragments and the lib files. Now, if you don't already have the lib files installed, what you're going to want to do is extract the content of that zip file to the program files Apache Tomcat lib directory. And you can see I've already extracted them here. One of the files is waffle Tomcat 9 and a version number there. So I've already put those in the lib folder. Okay. So now that we've got everything, we need to go and extract the fragments. Actually, let's go to the downloads and do an extract of the config file fragments. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the downloads folder. I don't need to show extracted when complete. Go ahead and extract these files. Let's refresh here. And so you can see the configuration file fragments. So we actually need to go to the XWiki program, the installation on the system, and that's under Web Apps, Program Files, Tomcat, Web Apps, XWiki, and the first one is the meta-inf folder. And we need to update the context.xml file with the fragment that we've downloaded with some code from there. So I'm going to do a right click and drag and do a copy here so that I have a backup copy of that file. And I actually want to open that file. We can close this tab now. I can open this file using Notepad 2. Okay. And I actually want to go to the downloads and open the content. Let's close this. We're going to do this the other way around. The meta-inf context XML, that's what we want to add. So I'm going to drag and drop that to Notepad 2, and you can see there's some instruction in here to paste the content of this file just under the first line of the context tag inside the context.xml file. So I'm going to highlight that and copy. And I'm going to go back down to meta-inf, and I'm going to open the context file. And just under the first context tag right here, I'm going to paste that content in there. So you can see it adds some stuff for the Integrated Windows Authentication. Okay. So I'm going to close and save that file. Next, we are going to go to the web-inf directory, and we need to update two files in there, web.xml and xwiki.cfg. So I'm going to go to that folder, XWiki, and then web-inf. The first file is web.xml. I'm going to make a backup of that one. Okay, and the other file, as it says here, is the xwiki.cfg file. So I'm going to go to that file, do a right click and drag and copy, so we have a copy of that as well. So the first one that we want to get the fragment to, let's go to downloads, is go to the web-inf web XML, and let's open that in Notepad 2 and copy the content of this file. Oops. I'm going to do that with the keyboard and then copy. Let's go back down to web-inf and find the web.xml file and open that in Notepad 2. Now, just above, as it says, the first filter tag in the comment here, I'm going to go ahead and hit return and paste that content right in there, as it says, just above the first filter tag. And what we want to do is we actually want to put in between the role name of tags here, we need to put in the group, the Active Directory name of the name of the Active Directory group that will allow users to authenticate to the web server. So that's actually the pre-Windows 2000 account name of the group. So domain name / and we'll just do a copy and paste to make sure we're not making any typos there. And put that in there. Right? And we'll do the same in the other role name tag. Okay? So now we have specified who can authenticate to the web server. And we'll save and close that. And the last file that we want is the xwiki.cfg file. We need to paste some lines to the end of that file. Let's go back to downloads and get that content. We'll open it in Notepad 2. And we'll select all and copy. Okay. And we'll go back to the web-inf folder and open the xwiki.cfg file, which is right here in Notepad 2. We'll go to the end of the file and we'll paste that in. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is to specify the FQDN of a domain controller that's in our domain. And in this demo environment, put local. Let's just do a ping of that server name, make sure we've typed it correctly, that we get a response. Control V there, and yep, that domain controller name looks good. Okay, now we want the distinguished name of the Active Directory domain, so that looks like DC equals domain name. Well, I can actually copy and paste that, make sure we type it. Okay. Now we want to specify the account information for that LDAP Authenticator account. So that's going to be domain name, and we have to put 2 backslashes here for escaping in this config file. And then we want the pre-Windows 2000 account name of that user account. So we can look at that account and look at the account tab and copy the pre-Windows 2000 logon name. Okay. And we can paste that in there. And unfortunately, we do have to hard code the password of that account in the XWiki config file. So what I've done is I've just created a sample long password to set on that account. Can copy that and make sure that that is set on this account. I'm going to do the reset password command and Control V to paste. And okay, so we're making sure we've set that account password. And as noted before, you probably want password never expires on there. Close that. And I'm going to go back and paste that password into the configuration file. Okay, the last step is we want to specify the DN or distinguished name of the group that should be an XWiki administrator. So in my Active Directory users and computers, that's this XWiki admins group, and I can copy that, the account name of that group. And if you have, which you should hopefully have, the Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell installed, you can put 80 group, get-80 group, and the name of that group in the domain, and you can get, that's a very easy way to retrieve the distinguished name of that group. Okay, so I'm going to do a right click on the title bar here and mark and select this distinguished name and hit enter, copy it to the clipboard and paste it into the xwiki.cfg file. Okay, so now we have specified the server, the distinguished name of the domain, the service account username and password, and the administrators group. Okay, so the xwiki.cfg file is now up to date. I'm going to take an extra step here and change the default permissions of that CFG file so that users don't have read access to it. Okay, which actually I had already set that permission, but you want to watch the permissions of that file because it does contain a password. Right now you can see that users don't have access because I had set that permission up higher in the tree, but that would be a recommendation. Okay, so the last step is, now that all of the configuration files are up to date, we just go to our services applet and do a restart of the Apache Tomcat service. So I'm just going to click the restart there. Now, one thing that's real important to note on configuring this integrated Windows authentication for Tomcat is that these configuration changes will also need to be applied to the next version when you upgrade. So just make sure that you make a backup of these files and the changes that you've made so you can move them forward to the next version if and when you decide to upgrade your XWiki. Okay, so now we can just go back to our browser and we should see the XWiki. We'll go ahead and start the initialization of the XWiki application because we just restarted the service. So you'll see the usual initializing page there. So you can see that the application initialized, and if I go to the menu, you'll see that I'm logged in as admin, but I do not have administrative access to the wiki because the administer link is not there. And you'll also notice that there is a logout link, but it actually doesn't do anything because I'm already authenticated with a username and password. So or not with a username and password, rather integrated Windows Authentication, single sign-on, right? So there's really not a way to log out because I'm already logged in using my Windows account. And so the other thing that we can demo here is we can show how if I launch using that XWiki admin account, that I will have administrative access to the XWiki application. So I can open the browser using the alternate credentials here, and you'll see that we'll actually have administrative access. So we'll have to go to the xwiki.fabricam.local/xwiki. Go ahead and hit enter. Go ahead and log in there. Right? So it takes me to the XWiki interface, and you'll notice if I click there, I do have administrator access, right? Because I'm now logged in using Active Directory. This account is a member of that admins group, right? So this shows how you can manage access to the application simply by changing the membership of the domain group. If I remove this member from the group, for example, and we can also remove the domain users group from the XWiki users. We can remove that out of there. Okay, so XWiki users no longer has domain users, right? So that means if I close the browser and if I run as different user, I will get an error if I try to go to the XWiki page. Okay, let's just go there. And you'll see, again, 403 forbidden because I no longer can authenticate. Right? So I hope that this video tutorial was helpful in helping you set up integrated Windows authentication on XWiki.